One of the people who we've known for a really long time is our next speaker, His Excellency Amadou Hott. Amadou Hott is, you have to forgive my eyesight, but I want to make sure I get this right. The Honourable Amadou Hott is the former Special Envoy of the President of the AfDB, African Development Bank, for the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, and he is the former Minister of Economy, Planning and International Cooperation from Senegal. Now, I don't think there's anybody else who's going to open this from the perspective of the continent. I'm delighted, Amadou, to have you with us, and I invite you to make your continental keynote address. Thank you, sir.
Excellency, Honorable Commissioner, Honorable Minister, Honorable Ministers, CEOs, and distinguished participants, good evening. Thank you very much, Simon, for this honor. It is a great pleasure to be back to Cape Town, especially after a hectic campaign for the presidency of the African Development Bank. We had a very, very good run. This campaign took me across every corner of the continent and beyond. And I listened to heads of states, to governors, to ministers, to entrepreneurs. And the message was crystal clear, repeated in every capital city. Energy is everything. Without abundant, reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy, we have no transformation. Actually, we have no future without energy. Africa stands at the crossroad where energy security, industrial development, and climate change adaptation converge. For me, this is not transition, it is revolution. A just, inclusive revolution we must lead ourselves from Africa, for Africa. Managed poorly, this becomes Africa's century. But only if Africa unites. I'm not talking about flags, parliaments. I mean practical economic unity. A real continental market where goods, services, capital, and talent flow freely. Unity in policies, unity in our strategies, and unity in our action built on coordination and collaboration. Picture this reality. A hydroelectric dam in Kinshasa powers factories in Lusaka. Natural gas from Nigeria's river states, fueling industries in Douala. Hydroelectric power in Tanzania, powering schools in Uganda. Imagine even a subsea transmission line from Madagascar to Mozambique. Why not, if it's bankable? To connect Madagascar and its energy to the Southern African power pool. That's the Africa we must build. Here is the fundamental challenge. Most of our countries are small when taken individually. Investors don't chase small deals. We need big deals to have big transformation. Investors pursue scale, stability, and simplicity. A united Africa delivers all three, but only if we align strategy with action. Our regional power pools have done actually well. They are already building blocks of our continental master plan for a single electricity market. I'm sure Commissioner Loretta will talk about this. The Southern African Power Pool leads the way. Power flows seamlessly from Mozambique to South Africa, from Zambia to Botswana, from Zimbabwe to Namibia, and it works. The West African Power Pool shows tremendous progress. Nigeria sells power to Benin and to Niger. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire sell power to Burkina Faso. Senegal sells power to the Gambia. And the OMVS and OMVG in West Africa, these are hydro projects connecting Senegal, Mali, Mauritania, and Guinea-Bissau, exemplify masterful collaboration. The East African Power Pool makes significant strides. Ethiopian electricity lights the street of Mombasa, ports of Djibouti, and even homes in Sudan. The Central African Power Pool holds enormous potential despite slower progress. Imagine DRC selling Inga's power to South Africa, Angola, Cameroon, and beyond. This transforms everything. But we must deliver Inga 3 within this decade. The African Development Bank and the World Bank have a huge responsibility in making sure that massive projects happen. The North African Power Pool, or COMELEC, has tremendous potential to sell power to Mauritania, but also to Sudan and to the rest of the African countries with the transmission lines projects that we have right now. But let's talk about money. Africa needs $250 billion annually by 2030 to meet energy demand. The electricity sector alone requires $120 billion annually, with half going to renewable energy. Yet, Africa receives only 3% of global energy investments. But Africa houses 20% of the world population. There is a big mismatch here, but also it's a huge opportunity. But let me be clear, international capital alone will not do it and will not be enough. Africa holds more than $2 trillion in pension fund money, insurance fund money, sovereign wealth fund money, on top of the $2.5 trillion owned by high net worth individuals across the continent. And I believe that even if you have a fraction of this money going into energy, will make a very big leap forward. Development finance institutions, again, and guarantee providers have a big role to play here. We also must expand the local currency financing to slash the exchange rate risk. It's a very big issue in many of these IPPs. We must structure infrastructure deals in local currency because most of the revenue is also in local currency. We must strengthen domestic capital markets, crowd in local institutional investors. This is not just prudent, it's essential for sustainable and resilient energy access. Everywhere around the world, people finance infrastructure with their local currency. We cannot just rely on hard currency and run this huge FX risk. On risk, the facts might surprise you. Moody's Analytics found that African projects' default rate are just at 2.2%, where Eastern Europe is at 8.6%, Latin America at 12.9%, and North America, the mighty North America, 7.6%, and Africa only at 2.2%. But yet, we're still paying higher cost of capital. And we are not the risk we are perceived to be. Again, this provides an opportunity for guarantee providers to come in between and structure these things properly. We must attract private capital to regional energy projects, including transmission lines. The public money alone cannot do it. And without transmission, the generation remains a stranded potential. Beyond financing risk and mobilizing private capital, I think we need two key enablers on these power pool opportunities. First, clear, enforceable cross-border regulations and fair electricity trading frameworks. Second, and this one is fundamental, a diplomatic culture where contracts are sacred, honored regardless of political tensions between countries or between leaders, actually, sometimes. You cannot weaponize the energy access. And if we don't give that comfort to countries that relying on electricity from the other country is exactly the same as having your own generation in your own country, then everybody is tempted to build their own small little projects, and then we won't get there. Again, mechanisms with DFIs and others providing some guarantees, I think, will give comfort to countries. Project preparation and project development are key, because we all know a PowerPoint presentation is not a power plant. We know between those two lies valleys of negotiations, of meetings, of studies, permits, regulations, financing structures, millions of air miles. I think Andrew Johnson here knows what I'm talking about. Millions of air miles flying in and out, hundreds of hotel nights, advisors' due diligence, and their heavy fees. Proposing the same agreement again, but charging the same fee again, right? Of course, the implementation delays. This is what we are dealing with when we are trying to do this project. That's why the preparation, development money, and talent is extremely important. We all know that delays are devastatingly expensive. We all know that 1 month of delay can become 2 years of setback. Why? In between, you can have Russian war in Ukraine, you can have COVID, you can have inflation, interest rate going up, tariff that needs to be adjusted, and the government doesn't want to adjust it, and then you are there for 2-3 years. And at the same time, you are paying 25 cents maybe to the kilowatt hour instead of paying that extra 2 cents or 3 cents and get the deal done. Here, my few challenges to some of us in this room. To investors, Africa's default rates, as I said, are second lowest globally, thanks to properly mitigated risk, through watertight agreements. The 600 pages that were mentioned, earlier by our IFC colleague. We have sovereign guarantees, partial risk guarantees, partial credit guarantees. Actually, who knows here the difference between partial risk guarantee and a partial credit guarantee? Sometimes you need both in a project, right? And you have also political risk insurance, and you name it. Because of all of that, the default risk is the lowest in the world. But expected returns are not always aligned with the actual risk in many cases. I think that, dear investors, it is time to recalibrate a little bit. Those 16, 17% IRR are gone, especially if I have all these guarantees, right? And again, where is Wale? Wale is around in the room? Okay, so no more 17% IRR, guys, okay? All right. To governments, massively increase energy budgets and front-loading investments. Without energy, we are not going anywhere. Therefore, let's take a huge part of our budget, give it to the energy ministers, and let them deliver on the energy on 5 years, et puis on passe à autre chose. We do something else, right? That is fundamental. Let's give more share of the budget to the energy sector, without which no other sector will strive. That's very critical. Without electricity, no sector flourishes and no future. Dear government officials and ministers, I've been there. Please allow that modest adjustment on the tariff to make the project viable and close the deal fast. Speed will save you money in the long run. Don't waste money by delaying projects that have a tariff that is already significantly lower than your least cost tariff. When your least cost tariff is at 30 cents or 25 cents. So let's close the deal and move on. To my friends from the development finance institutions, since I'm no longer there, I can say whatever I want, right? Yeah. You play a key role, but perfect transactions do not exist. My friends at African Development Bank, at IFC, Proparco, EIB, AFC, all those folks, perfect deal does not exist. Please walk in the shoes of the developer. They've spent 2 years, 3 years, development capital, they come to us, and then we take our time. We go slow, man, we go slow. Let's move fast to save time and save money. To my friends from philanthropy, philanthropy can play a key role in this whole process. Energy ministers will agree with me that they need talents. They want to do more. They want to do fast things. The president putting pressure on them, population putting pressure on them. But if they don't have the right talent to deal with all the complexity that DFIs, developers, even finance ministers at home are creating, then we will not go somewhere. And the budget cannot pay the right salary to attract those people. Philanthropy put facilities in place, like they did for me when I was Minister of Economy, to attract talent and do the reform fast in the country. I think this is the biggest leveraging factor of scarce resources of the philanthropy. Time kills deals. Political terms are 4 to 5 years in most countries. Energy projects takes often longer. Every delay pushes success beyond electoral cycles, creating continuity risk that destroys the momentum. Let me be clear. The cost of inaction always exceeds the cost of an imperfect action. Let's keep that in mind when we are dealing with the investors. Excellencies, distinguished participants, a united Africa is within reach in electricity at least. The African Union endorsement of Mission 300, alongside the Dar es Salaam Declaration, reflects strong continental political commitment. The technology exists. The resources are abundant. Demand is overwhelming. And I think this is Africa's moment to fix this once for all. Not in isolation, but as one continent with one ambition. Delivering abundant, reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy for all. Let's move decisively from PowerPoint to power plants, from intentions to connections, from fragmented markets to one united, electrified, and economically empowered Africa. The future depends on today's energy choices. Choose unity, choose progress, choose to light up and empower Africa together. The lights of a united Africa await activation. Let's flip that switch together. Thank you very much.